Standoff between Congress and the Justice Department boiling over. House Intelligence Committee Chairman Devin Nunes blasting the DOJ and the FBI for both withholding information related to the anti-Trump dossier. Welcome to a brand new hour of America's Newsroom, and good morning to you. I'm Julie Banderas.
And I'm Rick Leventhal. Bill and Sandra are off today. Congressman Nunes losing his patience as demands to produce documents and witnesses continue to be ignored. The California congressman preparing a contempt of Congress resolution against FBI Director Christopher Wray and Deputy Attorney General Rod Rosenstein. House Majority Leader Kevin McCarthy saying he understands the growing frustration.
When you sit back and you look at what has happened, the lack of response, Congress has a responsibility of oversight. They have been ignored. They have been delayed. They have refused to send people in to have hearings or to be questioned. And then when we look at the latest of people being removed that are in centerpieces from investigating when it was Hillary Clinton or making decisions on what investigation should go forward.
Kevin Cork is live in Washington. What is at the heart of this complaint that was lodged by Chairman Nunes?
Well, listen, my friend, in a word, it's stonewalling, or another word I suppose could be foot dragging. But by any definition, Rick, this is an abject refusal on the part of agency leadership, both of the DOJ and the FBI, to respond to congressional subpoenas. And that's really at the heart of the frustration. So as you pointed out, in that letter to Deputy AG Rod Rosenstein, Nunes expresses frustration for the leadership's failure to comply, citing numerous requests for information and interviews related to the Steele dossier, which some have argued led to the surveillance of Trump campaign operatives, possibly even the unmasking of American citizens in private communications, and eventually, some have also argued, the special counsel investigation. So finally, in his letter, first obtained exclusively by Fox News, thanks to my colleague John Roberts, the chairman said boldly, at this point, it seems the DOJ and FBI need to be investigating themselves. Quite the shot. And as you could well imagine, he is not alone. There are several other GOP lawmakers making it very clear that enough is enough.
We need all of that so we can then prepare to interview, whether it's former General Counsel Baker, whether it is Peter Strzok, whether it's Lisa Page. We need to interview everyone who may have access to information, and we need access to all the documents. And frankly, Jason, we've been waiting a long time for it.
Waiting a long time. You heard Trey Gowdy spell it out there. Now, he also mentioned, by the way, some of the people that they'd like to hear from, among them James Baker, FBI's former general counsel, agents Peter Strzok and Lisa Page, and a host of others. The list is long, and unfortunately, in terms of the carriage of justice, a list that is not getting any shorter anytime soon. Rick?
Well, that leads us to our next question, Kevin. What happens next? Is there a deadline here?
Well, I want you to mark your calendar. January 3rd is the next deadline to produce documents and to schedule interviews. But at this point, there are some other lawmakers on Capitol Hill who are frankly wondering when and to what degree will Attorney General Jeff Sessions finally step up his involvement.
One of the things that's created a problem with Jeff Sessions' recusal is in getting responses. Jeff has to, well, I've recused myself on that area, so I can't really get involved in the response. But I think he's going to have to lay down the law that, look, regardless of what the response is, get it to Congress now.
Lay down the law. Now, there is no word on what the Attorney General may have planned. However, it is still possible that a separate special counsel could at some point be appointed. We'll have to see if it comes to that, Rick.
And I think there might be some developments on this over the next few days,
Yeah.
Kevin Cork, so thanks for being on that story for us.
Well, for more on this, Niall Stanage is White House columnist for The Hill and joins me now. All right, so Nunes says that by failing to comply to fully produce documents related to the Trump dossier, the DOJ and the FBI should investigate themselves. What's being said about that?
Their version of the story is that they have already produced hundreds of pages of classified documents and that there are genuine issues that have to be worked through before complying, for example, regarding human sources of intelligence, who they naturally don't want to reveal.
Okay, but he is basically saying that they are not fully producing. So, yes, they've produced documents, but they haven't produced fully. In other words, not all of them. The subpoenas were in August. We're now at the end of December. Why the delays?
Well, I mean, I'm not here to speak for the Department of Justice or the FBI. These things are subject to negotiation. There already have been, as I understand, negotiations between those agencies and the committee. I'm not speaking or defending the position either. It clearly is not a good look for those agencies to be accused of stonewalling. It's simply that we don't know for certain. We know what each side is saying. We don't know what the objective truth is.
Okay, I want to read something that Nunes also says regarding all the delays and the discrepancies, because he says that as a result of the numerous delays and discrepancies that have been hampered, that have hampered the process of subpoena compliance, the committee no longer credits the representations made by DOJ and or the FBI regarding these matters. Now, Nunes calls the DOJ's initial response to the subpoenas disingenuous at best. Now, I understand in any investigation, the prosecution never discloses the evidence until the end of an investigation. But what is the DOJ's reason for not adhering to a subpoena?
I don't believe that the DOJ's position is it's going to disobey the subpoena.
Right.
I believe the DOJ's position is it is working through that issue and will, through a process of negotiation with the committee, come to a point where they can decide what they can reveal and what they cannot.
Okay, and Nunes also says, by the way, that the DOJ initially claimed the documents didn't even exist, when in fact they did. And that might raise some eyebrows, because when they were subpoenaed by the House Intelligence Committee, which is investigating the Russian interference in the 2016 election, they came forward and said that there weren't any documents, when we all know there were.
Yes, and that is, I think, the strongest element in Nunes's argument, the fact that these documents were apparently withheld. Look, it doesn't matter who you are or what the probe is. If you are revealed to have documents that you denied having, that's a problem. So clearly that is an issue, and that's, to my mind, the stronger facet of his argument.
Yeah, and so he's demanding all these records and available dates for witnesses to testify, as we just heard Kevin Corke talk about. They need to be provided, or at least he's requesting they be provided to the committee by January 3rd. Now, if the FBI and DOJ don't actually hold up to this, they could be held in contempt. I mean, what's your belief of that actually happening?
It would certainly be a ratcheting up of this ongoing battle between the congressman and the agencies. He has threatened to bring that contempt charge against the Rod Rosenstein and the head of the FBI. Clearly, that would be a very dramatic move. There are literal criminal penalties for contempt of Congress, so it would be a very clear intensification of this battle.
All right, Niall Stanage, thank you very much. Great to see you.
Thanks, you too, Julie.
President Trump letting loose in a year-end interview with the New York Times, taking aim at nuclear North Korea, China, the Russia investigation, and Democrats. The president saying, quote, "I can only tell you that there is absolutely no collusion. Everybody knows it. And you know who knows it better than anybody? The Democrats. They walk around blinking at each other." Rich Edson is live in a very warm West Palm Beach, Florida, with more on this. Rich?
Yeah, good morning, Rick. And the president also says he believes special counsel Bob Mueller will be fair to him because he says everyone knows there was no collusion between his campaign in 2016 and the Russian government. This is a 30-minute interview with the New York Times. He also hits on Hillary Clinton's deleted emails. The Times asked him whether the Department of Justice should reopen its investigation into that matter. President Trump to that said, quote, "What I've done, I have absolute right to do what I want to do with the Justice Department. But for purposes of hopefully thinking I'm going to be treated fairly, I've stayed uninvolved with this particular matter." He also moved on to the congressional agenda, claimed that Democrats could have gotten a better deal out of Republicans in the tax bill had they agreed to negotiate and engaged on the issue. He's also just tweeted and discussed in this interview DACA, the Obama-era policy that protects the so-called dreamers, those brought to the United States illegally as children. He says the Democrats aren't going to continue that DACA policy to protect those dreamers if they don't agree to deal on the wall on the southern border and end chain migration. He also talked about his own foreign policy knowledge, his command of it. He says, "I know the details of taxes better than anybody, better than the greatest CPA. I know the details of health care better than most. And if I didn't, I couldn't have talked all these people into doing ultimately only to be rejected." The president also says he wants $1 trillion infrastructure plan. He's urging Democrats to work with Republicans on the agenda in 2018. That will begin to take form as the president meets with the congressional leadership on the Republican side at Camp David the first weekend in January. Rick.
And Rich, he also criticized China after those satellite images surfaced showing what appears to be ships trading oil between China and North Korea.
Right. The president's been picking on this for the last couple of days here. This is a report also that originated from South Korea in a publication there that China was circumventing UN Security Council resolutions and illegally providing energy to North Korea. The president in this interview has made the case that he's gone light on China because he's on the trade relationship because he's wanted China to act on North Korea. In the interview, he said, quote, the president, that China on trade has ripped off this country more than any other element of the world in history has ripped off anything. But I can be different if they're helping us with North Korea. Now, China has denied it illegally provided energy to North Korea. The Secretary of State and the President have both said that China is helping on North Korea, but that China can do much, much more. Rick?
Rich Edson in West Palm Beach. Rich, thanks very much.
Well, chaos in one city as a van crashes into a crowded sidewalk. What police are saying about the driver.
Also, the Trump administration considering a naval blockade against North Korea, how this could affect China.
And new rules in the tax law kicking in on Monday. Why our next guest wants to make some of those changes permanent.
The Democrats in the Senate could have made those tax cuts permanent instead of having to do the phase out, but they actually objected.
A shuttle van jumping the curb in Seattle, smashing into a group of pedestrians. The driver apparently suffered a medical emergency. 6 people taken to area hospitals, including the driver. 1 person is in critical condition, undergoing surgery. 4 others are in serious condition. The van driver suffering minor injuries. The sole passenger not hurt.
Big changes coming to the tax code on New Year's Day, but only a handful of them are permanent. Starting on Monday, the standard deduction doubles. It will be $12,000 for single filers, $24,000 for couples, while the child tax credit doubles to $2,000. My next guest is planning to introduce a bill to make these changes permanent. Republican Congressman Rodney Davis of Illinois. Congressman, thanks for being with us.
Hey, thanks for having me on, Rick.
So Democrats have repeatedly slammed the tax bill, as you know. They say it benefits the rich and hurts the middle class. What do you say to that?
Well, clearly the statistics don't show that. You look at the average amount of percentage of income that is going to be saved by families across the income spectrum. An overwhelming majority of the higher percentage goes to middle income and lower income families. And I, too, believe that we need to make the individual rates permanent, and the Democrats